The oil boom of the 20th century. The discovery of oil in the Middle East, 1920s to 1930s. Oil discoveries in places like Saudi Arabia, Iran, and Iraq in the 1920s and 1930s reshaped global geopolitics. These countries would go on to control some of the world's largest and most important oil reserves. The formation of major oil companies such as the Arabian American Oil Company, Aramco, in Saudi Arabia solidified the role of the Middle East in global oil supply. The OPEC era. 1960, OPEC formation. The Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries, OPEC, was formed by 5 founding nations, Iran, Iraq, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and Venezuela, to coordinate and unify petroleum policies. This marked a shift towards greater control of oil resources by producing countries. 1973 oil crisis. A major turning point came in 1973 when OPEC imposed an oil embargo against countries that supported Israel during the Yom Kippur War, leading to an oil shortage and a dramatic increase in prices. This event signaled the power that oil-producing nations could wield in the global economy. Oil and economic growth. The post-World War II period saw significant economic growth fueled by cheap and abundant oil. Developed nations, particularly in the West, became increasingly dependent on oil to power industries, transportation, and domestic energy needs. In the 1950s and 1960s, the rise of the U.S. as an oil producer, especially with the discoveries of oil in Texas and Alaska, bolstered its economic dominance. Oil and geopolitics. Cold War and the Middle East. During the Cold War, oil was at the center of geopolitical competition between the U.S. and the Soviet Union. The U.S. sought to ensure its access to Middle Eastern oil, while the Soviet Union attempted to tap into Central Asian reserves. In the Middle East, conflicts over oil resources were central to U.S. foreign policy, leading to involvement in conflicts such as the Iran-Iraq War, 1980 to 1988, and the Gulf War, 1990 to 1991. The Gulf War, 1990 to 1991. The invasion of Kuwait by Iraq in 1990 threatened global oil supplies and led to the U.S.-led Gulf War. The U.S. military's intervention was largely motivated by the need to protect global oil access and ensure the stability of the region's oil-rich countries.